Welcome once again to our reading of John Blanchard's wonderful booklet titled Jesus, Dead or Alive. This is episode 5, and it begins with The Witnesses. So much for alternative explanations of what may have happened, but they all cut across the Bible's strongest evidence that the resurrection of Jesus took place. The fact that he had appeared to different people at different times and days after his death and burial. 6 independent witnesses record 11 separate appearances over a period of 40 days. We have already touched on 2 of these, but they are included here so we can see the whole picture. 1. Mark tells us that after his resurrection, Jesus appeared first to Mary Magdalene, from whom he had cast out 7 demons. Mark 16:9. 2. As a group of women were hurrying back to Jerusalem to tell the disciples about the empty tomb and what the angel had told them, Jesus met them. Matthew 28:9. 3. Later that day, as 2 disciples were walking to Emmaus, a village about 2 miles from Jerusalem, Jesus himself drew near and went with them. Luke 24:15. 4. After having an evening meal with Jesus, these 2 disciples rushed back to Jerusalem to tell the disciples, but before they could get their story out, they were told, "The Lord has risen indeed, and has appeared to Simon." Luke 24:34. 5. While they were excitedly discussing these extraordinary events, Jesus himself stood among them and said to them, "Peace to you." Luke 24:36. 6. A week later, when the disciples were hiding in the same house, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." John 20:26. 7. Later, Jesus revealed himself again to the disciples at the sea by Tiberias. John 21:1. 8. There was one occasion when Jesus appeared to more than 500 brothers, or Christian believers, at one time. 1 Corinthians 15:6. 9. He also appeared to James. 1 Corinthians 15:7. 10. He appeared to 11 disciples when they were on a hillside in Galilee, and when they saw him, they worshipped him. Matthew 28:17. And 11. Finally, Luke records that 7 weeks after his resurrection, Jesus led them out as far as Bethany, where after giving them some final instructions, he parted from them and was carried up into heaven. Luke 24:50 through 51. And Paul. The earliest leaders of the Christian church became known as apostles, the primary qualification for which was to have been a witness to Jesus' resurrection. Acts 1:22. The apostle Paul was not included in any of these appearances. They all took place when he was on the brink of launching a murderous attack on the Christian church. Yet years later, when he listed some of the people to whom Jesus appeared, he added, "Last of all, he appeared also to me." 1 Corinthians 15:8. This was long after Jesus had ascended into heaven, as Paul immediately follows this by saying, "For I am the least of the apostles, unworthy to be called an apostle, because I persecuted the church of God." 1 Corinthians 15:9. He seems to be emphasizing God's grace to him in spite of his appalling record as a religious terrorist. What is certain is his claim that his experience of meeting with Jesus after his ascension was just as real and objective as those in the 11 other cases we have listed. When people in Corinth questioned his status and authority, he had no hesitation in replying, "Am I not an apostle? Have I not seen Jesus our Lord?" 1 Corinthians 9:1. Serial liars. The evidence for Jesus being seen alive after his death is impressive, but this has not prevented it from being questioned or denied. One approach bluntly claims that all the witnesses were lying. There is not a shred of evidence to support this idea, and what possible motive could they have had for doing so, when insisting that they had seen him alive after death was certain to get them into serious trouble? Paul's experience alone easily demolishes the idea that they were lying when they spoke of having met with Jesus after his resurrection. He was once a high-flying persecutor of the Christian church, breathing threats and murder against the disciples of the Lord, Acts 9:1, and licensed by the authorities to do so. After his conversion, he could scarcely go anywhere without risking his life. In his own words, his work as an apostle brought him face to face with danger from my own people, danger from Gentiles, danger in the city, danger in the wilderness, danger at sea, danger from false brothers, as well as having many a sleepless night, and being in hunger and thirst, often without food, and in cold and exposure. 2 Corinthians 11:26-27. Would he have deliberately left himself open to all this, and eventually be willing to die for something he knew he had invented? Any competent psychologist would make pretty short work of that idea. People will sometimes lie to get out of trouble, but never to get into it.